Welcome back on Kansas Sports Chatter. It's time now to continue to break down the 3A state playoffs as we get ready for the sub-state round. And to help us out with the segment will be Brent Hoelting. He's the head coach of the Pratt High School football team. Hey, Coach, another successful year for the Greenbacks. You guys go 9-2, and in that 9-2 record, a 9-game winning streak, make it to the state quarterfinals in 3A. For you, like as you're winding down, like what stood out to you that kind of really that you enjoyed about this year's team and made another successful Greenback program?
Yeah, I thought the improvement we made, from game one, and you watch us against Hoisington, and they're obviously a really good football team. Both teams we lost to are still undefeated and still in it. But I thought this group, the improvement that they made throughout the year, their commitment to getting better. We had a lot of new kids. I think starting out week one, we had two kids in the same spot they were in the year before. So I thought our improvement, our kids' willingness to work and get better every day and practice, how tough our kids were. We fought through a ton of injuries at the end of the year, and they kept trying to play even if they couldn't practice. So it was a fun year. You never want it to end, but very fun, rewarding year with some really good kids.
Well, as we look at the 3A bracket on the west side, including that top half of the west side, Coach, you look at Andale, the team that you just faced in the state quarterfinals. They move on to the semis. For you, when you break down Andale, I think everyone's aware of just, their presence in Class 3A. But where does it start for you when you're starting to break down Andale?
Well, you start with number 15, their quarterback, Sam Harp. I mean, he's a stud. For my money, probably the best player in 3A. He's a really, really good football player, does everything for them. And then they're just so fast and physical everywhere. I think they're not overly big, but they have 11 guys that are going to hunt every play for some contact. They're very, very physical. They get off the ball extremely hard. Credit to them. They have such depth, and their coaches do a good job of getting them in position to make plays. And whoever they sub in, they've got a guy that's going to sprint to the football. They're going to hit somebody when they're on defense and on offense. They're looking for contact, and they're going to get north-south real fast. So to even compete with them, you're going to have to get off the ball at a level that you've never done before, and you're going to have to be very, very physical and be able to sustain it for 4 quarters.
Just that scheme from Andale, like what is the strategy going in to even try to, like we talk about their athletes that they have, but just the scheme that they run, like what's the strategy going in against that type of a style of play?
They snap it so fast, they get up to the line. So it's really hard to simulate that in practice with young kids. So you got to get your kids down. And I think the big thing to be able to do that is you got to play with leverage against them. And you've got to get them stopped before they get started. They send so many guys to the point of attack that you have to plug it up and make it bounce or make them shuffle their feet and not get downhill. The first guy's really got to take on blocks, and it's really hard because they got so many and stand their ground, and you've got to force them to plug the hole up and to bounce or to be kind of stuffed with the number of blockers. Because if you don't do that and they can get through the hole and get downhill, they get up to speed so fast that even if you tackle them, it's a 7-yard gain every time. So I think the big thing is you have to stop them at the point of attack. And I think it's the same way defensively. They're going to play that too high safety. They take away big plays. You got to be able to throw underneath, but you got to be able to protect because they get off the ball so fast and so physical that sometimes you start seeing ghosts. You get rattled because they're in your face all game.
You look at the other side, Coach, and I know you didn't face Rock Creek this year, but they took on a few CKL teams, obviously played a Cheney team that you faced earlier this year, and it's similar to your Pratt program, just kind of been a constant in 3A here the last few years.
Yeah, Coach Steven does a great job there. From everything I know, I've watched just a little bit of them. Really good passing attack. They got a really good defense. Their defense has been great all year against everybody. So, and I know they turned over Cheney. Looking at the stats, it's very similar to our game in terms of defensive stats. I think we won 24-7, so we scored a little more, but the defensive stats were very, very similar in terms of total yardage. They are fast. I think they get after it up front on the defensive line, and they really run. So, being interesting to see if they can hold up against the pressure that Andale applies. That's same for anybody, but they've had a great season, and Coach Steven does a great job there.
When you start making these runs in the playoffs, I mean, you talk about that intensity of the ball game, but like, how do you try to control those emotions when you go into these big matchups, whether it's a first round game or a semifinal game?
Yeah, I think you just got to play your game, and I think that's hard. And our kids talked about that. We talked about it all week, and I still don't know that we were perfect at it. Going into Andale, they have the fireworks show, and you see 100 guys on the sideline, and 13 coaches, and you know what you're in for. And I think managing your emotions, any game. We had some big ones. Hugoton was a really good football team that we happened to run across in the second round. I think you have to manage the passion that you're going to play with, not get too hyped up and not do things that you wouldn't normally do. You just got to go play your game. When everything boils down to it, when the whistle blows, it's still the game of football. So I think you got to get that mentality. And we preach next play mentality a bunch with our kids. Like whatever happened the previous play, good or bad, bury it. Go play the next play as hard as you can. And I think that's what you have to do to be successful.
I've said this, and I think a lot of people have said this about Class 3A year in and year out, that I think it's the most exciting classification, especially on the West side, because you get first round matchups that are really juicy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot. Sometimes you get classifications that it takes to get to the quarterfinals before you kind of get one of those contested matchups. Like how much, I guess, fun, and I know it's a challenge as well, but how much fun is it competing in Class 3A?
Yeah, we talked about it, and obviously Andale's they're the king until proven otherwise. But if you look at it's funny, you look at the rankings or look at I know Max Preps does a power rating. I think 8 of the top 9 or 10 teams in the state were in the West most of the year. It is incredibly competitive. There are some really good football teams that didn't make it out of the first round. Scott City, Clay Center obviously had to play, and we had to play Hugoton. Chaparral was a really good football team. We had a really tough district. Wichita Collegiate had athletes all over. They had some injuries at quarterback this year, but they're a really dangerous football team. So I think it's one of those that you can never let your guard down. And that's fun. That's fun. You want to compete. I told the kids, no one remembers when you win 60-0. It's the games that you're playing really good teams that everybody remembers. And those are the games you want to play in. So I think 3A affords that opportunity every year. And I also think it's something you can point to your kids in the off season and say, hey, listen, if you don't get ready in the weight room and you don't get ready at a high level, you're going to get your butt kicked. So you better do things right in the off season to compete.
Coach, really good stuff, and I appreciate your insight.
Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate you.
That is Brent Hoelting, head coach of the Pratt Greenbacks, helping us break down the 3A West semifinals.